कहीं से बन रहा है। 7th canto, 6th chapter, verse 8. One whose mind and senses are uncontrolled becomes increasingly attached to the family life because of insatiable lusty desires and very strong illusion. In such a man's life, the remaining years are also wasted because even during those years, he cannot engage himself in devotional service. Purpose. This is the account of 100 years of life. Although in this age, a lifetime of 100 years is generally not possible. Even if one has 100 years, the calculation is that 50 years are wasted in sleeping, 20 years in childhood and boyhood, and 20 years in invalidity, jara vyadhi. This leaves only a few more years, but because of too much attachment to household life, those years are also spent with no purpose, without God consciousness. Therefore, one should be trained to be a perfect brahmachari in the beginning of life, and then to be perfect in sense control, following the regulative principle. If one becomes a householder, from householder life, one is ordered to accept vanprastha life and go to the forest, and then accept sannyas. That is the perfection of life. From the very beginning of life, those who are ajitendriya, who cannot control their senses, are educated only for sense gratification, as we have seen in the Western countries. Thus, the entire duration of the life of even 100 years is wasted and misused. At the time of death, one transmigrates to another body, which may not be harmed. At the end of 100 years, one who has not acted as human being in a life of tapasya, austerity and penance must certainly be embodied again in a body like those of cats, dogs and hogs. Therefore, this life of lusty desires and sense gratification is extremely risky. 9th verse. What person too attached to household life due to being unable to control his senses can liberate himself? An attached householder is bound very strongly by the ropes of affection for his family, wife, children and other relatives. Purport. Yes, Prahlad Maharaj's first proposal was Kaumadam Achit Pragya, Dharman Bhagavatam Iha. One who is sufficiently intelligent to use the human form of body from the very beginning of life. In other words, from the tender age of childhood, to practice the activities of devotional service, giving up all other engagements. Dharmam Bhagavatam means the religious principle of reviving our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From this purpose, Krishna personally advises Sarv Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Saranam Vraja. Give up all other duties and surrender unto me. While in the material world, we manufacture so many duties in the name of so many isms, but our actual duty is to free ourselves from the cycle of birth, death, old age and disease. For this purpose, one must first be liberated from the material bondage, and especially from the household life. Household life is actually a kind of license for materially attached person by which to enjoy sense gratification under regulative principles. Otherwise, there is no need of entering household life. Before entering household life, one should be trained as brahmachari, living under the care of a guru, whose place is known as Gurukula. Brahmachari Gurukula Vasandanto Guru Hitam. From the very beginning, a brahmachari is trained to sacrifice everything for the benefit of the Guru. A brahmachari is advised to go begging alms door to door, addressing all women as mother, and whatever he collects goes to the benefit of the Guru. In this way, he learns how to control his senses and sacrifice everything for the Guru. When he is fully trained, if he likes, he is allowed to marry. Thus, he is not an ordinary grihastha who has learned only how to satisfy his senses. A trained grihastha can gradually give up household life and go to the forest to become increasingly enlightened in the spiritual life, and at last take sannyas. Prahlad Maharaj explained to his father that to be freed from all material anxiety, one should go to the forest. Hitvatam patam griham andhakupam. One should give up his household life, which is a place for going further and further down into the darkest region of the material existence. The first advice, therefore, is that one must give up household life, griha andhakupam. However, if one prefers to remain in the dark well of household life because of uncontrolled senses, he becomes increasingly entangled by the rope of affection for his wife, children, servants, house, money, and so on. Such a person cannot attain liberation from material bondage. Therefore, children should be taught from the very beginning of life to be first-class brahmacharis. Then it will be possible for them to give up household life in the future. To return home back to Godhead, one must be completely free from material attachment. Therefore, Bhakti Yoga means Vairagya Vidya, the art that can help one develop a distaste from material enjoyment. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Proyujita Janaiti Asuvairagyam Jnanam Jat Ahetukam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Bhagavatam 1.2.7. If one engages in devotional service from the beginning of life, he easily attains Vairagya Vidya or Asakti, detachment, and becomes Jitendriya, the controller of his senses. One who perfectly engages in devotional service is therefore called Goswami or Swami, master of the senses. Unless one is master of the senses, he should not accept the renounced order of life, sannyas. A strong inclination for sense enjoyment is the cause of material body. Without full knowledge, one cannot be unattached to material enjoyment. But as long as one is not in that position, one is not fit to return home back to Godhead. Verse 10. Money is so dear that one conceives of money as being sweeter than honey. Therefore, who can give up the desire to accumulate money, especially in household life? Thieves, professional servants, soldiers, and merchants try to acquire money even by risking their life, very dear lives. Purpose. How money can be dearer than life is indicated in this verse. Thieves may enter the house of a rich man to steal money at the risk of their life. Because of trespassing, they may be killed by guns or attacked by watchdogs, but still they try to commit burglary. Why do they risk their lives only to get some money? Similarly, a professional soldier is recruited into the army and he accepts such service with the risk of dying on the battlefield only for the sake of money. In the same way, merchants go from one country to another on boats at the risk of their lives, or they dive into the water of sea to collect pearls and valuable gems. Thus, it is practically proved, and everyone will admit, that money is sweeter than honey. One may risk everything to acquire money, and this is especially true of a rich man who are too attached to household life. Formally, of course, the members of the higher caste, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, everyone but the Sudras, were trained in the Gurukula to adhere to a life of renunciation and self-control by practicing brahmacharya and mystic yoga. Then they were allowed to enter household life. There have consequently been many instances in which the great kings and emperors have given up household life. Although they were extremely opulent and were the master of the kingdom, they could give up all their positions because they were trained early as brahmacharis. Prahlad Maharaj's advice is therefore very appropriate. Kaumaram achrit karya dharmam bhagavatam durlabam manusam janam tadapi adruvam arthadam. One who is sufficiently intelligent should use the human form of body from the very beginning of life. In other words, from the tenderest stages of childhood, to practice the activities of devotional service, giving up all other engagements. The human body is most rarely achieved, and although temporary like other bodies, it is meaningful because in human life one can perform devotional service. Even a slight amount of sincere devotional service can give one complete perfection. Human society should take advantage of this instruction. Text 11 to 13. How can a person who is most affectionate to his family, the core of his heart being always filled with their pictures, give up their association? Specifically, a wife is always very kind and sympathetic and always pleases her husband in a solitary place. Who could give up the association of such a dear and affectionate wife? Children talk in a broken language, very pleasing to hear, and their affectionate father always thinks of their sweet words. How could he give up their association? One's elderly parents, one's sons, daughters are also very dear. A daughter is especially dear to her father, and while living at her husband's house, she is always in his mind. Who could give up that association? Aside from this, in household affairs, there are many decorated items of household furniture, and there are also animals and servants. Who could give up such comforts? The attached householder is like a silkworm who weaves a cocoon in which it becomes imprisoned, unable to get out, simply for the satisfaction of two important senses, the genitals and tongue. One is bound by material condition. How can one escape? Purport. In household life, the first attraction is the beautiful and pleasing wife, who increase household attraction more and more. One enjoys his wife with two prominent sense organs, namely the tongue and the genitals. The wife speaks very sweetly. This is certainly an attraction. Then she prepares very palatable foods to satisfy the tongue. And when the tongue is satisfied, one gains strength in the other sense organs, especially the genitals. Thus, the wife gives pleasure in sexual intercourse. Household life means sex life. Janmaitu adi grihamedi sukham. This is encouraged by the tongue. Then there are children. A baby gives pleasure by speaking sweet words in broken language. And when the sons and daughters are grown up, one becomes involved in their education and marriage. Then there are one's own father and mother to be taken care of. And one also becomes concerned with the social atmosphere and with pleasing his brothers and sisters. A man becomes increasingly entangled in household affairs, so much so that leaving them becomes almost impossible. Thus, the household becomes Griham Andakupam, a dark well into which the man has fallen. For such a man to get out is extremely difficult. Unless he is held by a strong person, the spiritual master, who helps the fallen person with a strong rope of spiritual instructions, a fallen person should take advantage of this rope, and then the spiritual master or the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna will take him out of the dark well. Text 14. One who is too attached cannot understand that he is wasting his valuable life for the maintenance of his family. He also fails to understand that purpose of human life, a life suitable for realization of absolute truth, is being imperceptibly spoiled. However, he is very cleverly attentive to seeing that not a single farthing is lost. Always suffer from threefold miseries. He does not develop a distaste from the way of material existence. Purport. A foolish man does not understand the values of human life, nor does he understand how he is wasting his valuable life simply for calculating the loss of pounds, shillings and pence, but losing, even according to material considerations, chance purchase in exchange for millions of dollars. A foolish person would, however, waste such a valuable life without knowing how much he is losing. even according to monetary calculations. Although a materialistic person is expert in calculating cost and doing business, he does not realize that he is misusing his costly life for the want of knowledge. Even though such a materialistic person is always suffering threefold miseries, he is not intelligent enough to seize his materialistic way of life. Text 15. If a person too attached to the duties of family maintenance is unable to control his senses, the core of his heart is immersed in how to accumulate money. Although he knows that one who takes the wealth of others will be punished by the law of government and by the laws of Yamraj after death, he continues cheating others to acquire money. Purport. Especially in these days, people do not believe in the next life or in the court of Yamraj and the various punishments of the sinful. But at least one should know that one who cheats others to acquire money will be punished by the laws of the government. Nonetheless, people do not care about the laws of this life or those governing the next. Despite whatever knowledge one has, one cannot stop his sinful activities if he is unable to control his senses. Text 16. O my friends, sons of demons, in this material world, even those who are apparently advanced in education have the propensity to consider, this is mine and that is for others. Thus, they are always engaged in providing the necessities of life to their families in a limited conception of family life. Just like uneducated cats and dogs, they are unable to take to spiritual knowledge. Instead, they are bewildered and overcome by ignorance. Purport. In society, there are attempts to educate the human being, but for animal society, there is no such system, nor are animals able to be educated. Therefore, animals and unintelligent men are called vimura, or ignorant, bewildered, whereas an educated person is vidwan. The real vidwan is one who tries to understand his own position within this material world. For example, when Sanatana Goswami the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his first question was, Ke ami, kene amai, jare tapatrai. In other words, he wanted to know his constitutional position and why he was suffering from threefold miseries of material existence. This is the process of education. If one does not ask, who am I and what is the goal of my life, but instead follows the same animal propensities as cats and dogs, what is the use of his education? As discussed in the previous verse, a living being is entrapped by his fruitive activities, exactly like a silkworm trapped in its own cocoon. These persons are generally engaged by their fruitive actions, karma, because of strong desire to enjoy this material world. Such attracted persons become involved in society, community, and nation and waste their time, not having profited from having obtained human forms. Especially in this age, Kali Yuga, great leaders, politicians, philosophers, and scientists are all engaged in foolish activities, thinking this is mine and this is yours. The scientists invent nuclear weapons and collaborate with big leaders to protect the interest of their own nation or society. In this verse, however, it is clearly stated that despite their so-called advanced knowledge, they actually have same mentality as cats and dogs. As cats, dogs, and other animals, not knowing their true interest in life, become increasingly involved in ignorance. So-called educated person who does not know his own self-interest or the true goal of life becomes increasingly involved in materialism. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj advises everyone to follow the principle of Varnashram Dharma. Specifically, at a certain point, one must give up family life and take to the renounced order of life to cultivate spiritual knowledge and thus become liberated. This is further discussed in the following verses. Text 17 and 18. My dear friends, O sons of Demon, it is certain that no one bereft of knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead has been able to liberate himself from the material bondage at any time or in any country. Rather, those bereft of knowledge of the Lord are bound by the material laws. They are factually addicted to sense gratification and their target is women. They are actually playthings in the hands of attractive women. Victimized by such a conception of life, they become surrounded by children, grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and thus they are shackled to material bondage. Those who are very much addicted to this conception of life are called demons. Therefore, although you are son of demons, keep aloof from such persons and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, the origin of all demigods, because the ultimate goal for the devotees of Narayana is liberation from the bondage of material existence. Purport. Prahlad Maharaj has maintained the philosophical point of view that one should give up the dark well of family life and go to the forest to take shelter of lotus feet of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hitvatam patam griham andhakupam vanam gato yad harimashret. In this verse also, he stresses the same point. In the history of human society, no one at any time or any place has been liberated because of too much affection and attachment for his family. Even in those who are apparently very educated, the same family attachment is there. They cannot give up the association of their families, even in old age or invalidity, for they are attached to sense enjoyment. As we have several times discussed, Janmaitu Adi Grihamedi Sukhamitucham. So-called householders are simply attached by sexual enjoyment. Thus, they keep themselves shackled in family life, and furthermore, they want their children to be shackled in the same way. Playing the parts of a playboys in the hands of women, they glide down to the darkest region of material existence. Adantu gopir visatam tamishram puna puna charvita charvananam. Because they are unable to control their senses, they continue a life of chewing the chewed, and therefore descend to the darkest material regions. One should give up the association of such demons and adhere to the association of devotees. Thus, one will be able to be liberated from material bondage. Text 19. My dear sons of demon, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, is the original Super Soul, the father of all living entities. Consequently, there are no impediments to pleasing him or worshipping him under any condition. Whether one be a child or an old man, the relationship between the living entity and Supreme Personality of Godhead is always a fact, and therefore there is no difficulty in pleasing the Lord. Purport. One may ask, one is certainly very attached to family life, but if one gives up family life to be attached to the service of the Lord, one must undergo the same endeavor and trouble. Therefore, what is the benefit of taking the trouble to engage in the service of the Lord? This is not a valid objection. The Lord asserts in Bhagavad Gita 14.4 Sarvyonisi Konteya Murte Sambhavantiya Tasam Brahm Mahadiyoni Aham Vichitapita. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving Father. The Supreme Lord Narayana, is the seed-giving Father of all living entities, because the living entities are part and parcels of the Supreme Lord. Mamai Vamso Jeev Bhuta. As there is no difficulty in establishing the intimate relationship between a father and a son, there is no difficulty in re-establishing the natural, intimate relationship between Narayana and living entities. Swalpam api asya dharmasya prayato mahato bhayat. If one performs even very slight devotional service, Narayana is always ready to save one from the greatest danger. The definite example is Ajamila. Ajamila separated himself from Supreme Personality of Godhead by performing many sinful activities and was condemned by Yamraj to be very severely punished. But because at the time of death he chanted the name of Narayana, although he was calling not for the Supreme Lord Narayana, but for his son named Narayana, he was saved from the hands of Yamraj. Therefore, pleasing Narayana does not require as much endeavor as pleasing one's family, community, and nation. We have seen important political leaders killed for slight discrepancy in their behavior. Therefore, pleasing one's society, family, community, and nation is extremely difficult. Pleasing Narayana, however, is not at all difficult. It is very easy. One's duty is to revive one's relationship with Narayana. A slight endeavor in this direction will make the attempt successful, whereas one will never be successful in pleasing his so-called family, society, and nation. Even if one endeavors to sacrifice his life, the simple endeavor involved in devotional service of Sravan Kirtanam Vishnu, hearing and chanting the holy name of the Lord, can make one successful in pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore bestowed his blessing by saying, Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtana, all glories to Sri Krishna Sankirtana. If one wants to derive the actual benefit from this human life, human form, he must take to the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Text 20 to 23. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Controller, who is infallible and indubitable, is present in different forms of life, from the inert living beings, Thavara, such as plants, to the Brahma, the foremost created living being. He is also present in the varieties of material creation and in the material elements, the total material energy and the modes of material nature, Sattva-guna, Rajoguna and Tamoguna, as well as unmanifested material nature and the false ego. Although he is one, he is present everywhere. He is also the transcendental super soul, the cause of all causes, who is present as the observer in the course of the hearts of the all living entities. He is indicated as that which is pervaded and as the super soul. But actually, he cannot be indicated. He is changeless and undivided. He is simply perceived as the supreme Satchidanand, eternity, knowledge and bliss. Being covered by the curtain of external energy, to the theist he appears non-existent. Purport. Not only is the Supreme Personality of Godhead present as the super soul of all living entities, at the same time he pervades everything in the entire creation. He exists in all circumstances and at all times. He exists in the heart of Lord Brahma and also in the course of the hearts of hogs, dogs, trees, plants and so on. He is present everywhere. He is present not only in the heart of living entity but also in the material things, even in the atoms, protons and electrons being explored by the material scientists. The Lord is present in three features as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. Because he is present everywhere, he is described as Sarvam Khala Idam Brahman. Idam Brahman. Vishnu exists beyond Brahman. Bhagavad Gita confirms that Krishna, by his Brahman feature, is all pervading. Maya Tadam Idam Sarvam. But Brahman depends upon Krishna. Brahmano hi Pratishthanam. Without Krishna, there could be no existence of Brahman or Paramatma. Therefore, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the ultimate realization of the Absolute Truth. Although he is present as the Paramatma in the core of everyone's heart, he is nonetheless one, either as an individual or as the all-pervading Brahman. The Supreme Cause is Krishna, and devotees who have surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead can realize him and his presence within the universe and within the atom. Andantaram stha parmanu chayantarastham. This realization is possible only for devotees who have fully surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Lord. For others, it is not possible. This is confirmed by the Lord Himself in Bhagavad Gita 7.14. Devi he sagun mam maya duratya mamegya prapadante maya metam tarmitite. The process of surrender in a devotional attitude is accepted by fortunate living beings. After wandering through many varieties of life on many planetary systems, when one comes to a real understanding of the absolute truth, by the grace of a devotee, one surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Bahunam janmanamante jnanvan mam prapadante. Prahlad Maharaj's class friends who were born of Daitya families thought that the realizing the absolute was extremely difficult. Indeed, we have experienced many people say this very thing. Actually, however, this is not so. The Absolute, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is most intimately related to all living entities. Therefore, if one understands the Vaishnava philosophy, which explains how he is present everywhere and how he acts everywhere, to worship the Supreme Lord or to realize Him is not at all difficult. Realization of our Lord, and however, is possible only in the association of devotees. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his teachings to Rupa Goswami, said, Brahmande Brahmite Kono Bhagavan Ji, Guru Krishna Prasad Pai Bhakti Lata Ji. The living entity in the material condition wanders through many varieties of life and many varieties of circumstances. But if he comes in contact with a pure devotee and is intelligent enough to take instruction from the pure devotee regarding the process of devotional service, he can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin of Brahman and Paramatma without difficulty. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya says, Antaryami Pratik Atma Vyakta Kalo Hari Smita Prakritya Samastabhasya Hare Aishwaram Na Jnanate. The Lord is present as Antaryami in everyone's heart and is visible in the individual soul covered by a body. Indeed, He is everywhere at every time in every condition. But because He is covered by the curtain of material energy, to an ordinary person, there appears to be no God. Text 24. Tasmat Sarvesh. Therefore, my dear young friends, born of demons, please act in such a way that the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the conception of material knowledge, will be satisfied. Give up demonic nature and act without enmity or duality. Show mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service, and thus become their well-wishers. Purport. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 18.55, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavam yaschasmi tattva. One can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by devotional service. Prahlad Maharaj ultimately instructed his class friends, the sons of demons, to accept the process of devotional service by preaching the signs of Krishna consciousness to everyone. Preaching is the best service to the Lord. The Lord will immediately be extremely satisfied with one who engages in this service of preaching Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed by the Lord Himself in Bhagavad Gita 18.69. Nacha tasman manushyesu kashim me priyakritamaha. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. If one sincerely tries to do best to spread Krishna consciousness by preaching the glories of the Lord and His supremacy, even if he is imperfectly educated, he becomes the dearmost servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is bhakti. As one performs this service for humanity without discrimination between friends and enemies, the Lord becomes satisfied, and the mission of one's life is fulfilled. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised everyone to become a Guru devotee and preach Krishna consciousness. Krishna Upadesh. That is the easiest way to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By such preaching, the preacher becomes satisfied, and those to whom he preaches are also satisfied. This is the process of bringing peace and tranquility to the entire world. Bhoktavan Niripakta, Sarvaloka Maheshwara, Suhidam Sarvabhutana, Gyatra Man Shanti Vishpati. One is expected to understand these three formulas of knowledge concerning the Supreme Lord. That He is the Supreme Enjoyer, and He is the proprietor of everything, and He is the best well-wisher and friend of everyone. A preacher should personally understand these truths and preach them to everyone. Then there will be peace and tranquility all over the world. The word Sohidam, friendliness, is very significant in this verse. People are generally ignorant of Krishna consciousness, and therefore, to become their best well-wisher, one should teach them about Krishna consciousness without discrimination. Since the Supreme Lord, Vishnu, is situated in the core of everyone's heart, every body is a temple of Vishnu. One should not misuse this understanding as an excuse for such words as Darid Narayan. If Narayan lives in the house of Daridra, a poor man, this does not mean that Narayan becomes poor. He lives everywhere, in the house of poor and those of the rich. But in all circumstances,
ये गिलास में पानी धो के लाना है सब कुछ
कर दो यहाँ पर पेटीज को
गिलास को अच्छा से धो के लेके आएगा।
ठीक है ये ओपन हो गया आज मांग रहे
जल्दी कैसे करना है बताओ, कैसे करना है बताओ।
किचन बॉक्स में लेके जाओ डीटीज में, और जैसे हम डीटीज के बर्तन धोते हैं वैसे ही धुलेंगे।
जल्दी आओ।
गिलास चाहिए,
गिलास लेकर गया ना।
आजकल नारियल पानी प्लास्टिक गिलास।
सबका है। यस मुझे बिल्कुल धो के।
कैसे माछ का या ऐसे खाली धो मिला है?
नहीं नहीं उसको बॉटल वगैरह उससे।
ये ढीला ढीला सब लगा है, चमकता है ये चांदी का।
अच्छा
क्या है जल्दीबाजी में से करके पूरा मशीन रखा हुआ सब खाली धोना पानी से निकाल के इसको माछ ही निकालना है। प्लेट में सजा के कैसे ऐसे
आप ऐसे
खाना पड़ता है सजा के अच्छा से पानी भर के लेके आना है इसको उसमें भोगा काट के लेके आना है
इसे भोगा काट के
ये भी नाम से पूछो कैसे करना है जल्दी जाओ टाइम हो गया
छोटे
छोटे काम के लिए इतना बताना पड़ता है अभी भोग लगाना है जल्दी से उसे
इसे भोग लगाओ।
तीन चार टाका फुट काटना है सब
काटा है
लेके नहीं आना है 8 के लेके आना है 8 के फल में इसमें टुकड़ा रहेगा और जो भी है सब सब लेकर आएगा जल्दी आओ फटाफट से
महाराज ने लिया कुछ महाराज ने लिया कुछ अभी लिया महाराज ने कुछ
अभी नहीं
कितने रुपये खाएंगे महाराज वापस ठीक है फिर मैं आके देती हूँ आम पर ना पिस्ता वगैरह भी है फिर ठीक है इसे मैं ऊपर ही ले जाऊँ पहला मैं साथ ही ले आऊँगी 7:30 ना मैं 7:30 आती हूँ मैं ऊपर किचन में हूँ तब महाराज बोलेंगे फालसे का शरबत
सब लेते आइए सब
चलो ठीक
ये मुझे चलेगा
चलेगा
वो मंगा रहे हैं
होगा स्वीट है उसमें स्वीट निकाल ऐसा वो खराब करके रेडी कर देना
किचन में
ग्लास में धोने के लिए दिए थे
फालसे का शरबत भी है फालसे का शरबत 1 घंटे बाद मैं ऊपर किचन में हूँ
और इसके बाद
आम बना के लाई हूँ बना के
आम बना और जूस वगैरह कुछ अवेलेबल जैसे हमारे जनरली ये लेते हैं
सब लेके आ रहे हैं ना जनरली क्या
अभी
जनरली तो पिलाते हैं तो वही ना
नहीं महाराज वक्त नहीं है जब तक ग्लास प्रभु जी आप ये ना ग्लास धोने के लिए दिए थे माता जी को
एक गिलास मुझे दे दो और मेरे
डालो इसके अंदर
या हाँ ये
इतना बड़ा नहीं है
तोड़ के डालो नहीं आएगा तो
मैंने प्रभु एक गिलास दे दो मुझे महाराज का, मैं ना फारसी का शरबत ऊपर से बना के ले आऊंगी।
आपको जगह नहीं है?
दे।
ये करने को धोने के लिए दे।
अच्छा ठीक है।
हाँ।
पानी का है।
हाँ, ठीक है।
साफ नहीं किया, मतलब वैसे ही उठा कर फिर से पानी भर के ले आया। वापस क्यों भेजा था दोबारा? टाइम कितना है, कहाँ जाना है?
नहीं फिर आप बोल रहे हैं ना तुरंत भोग लगाना है, तो आप दोबारा दीजिए
सब बिल्कुल अच्छे से
और अच्छे से रगड़ के हो जाएगा फिर।
उतना मैं बोला था, क्या था मैं बोला था पीला पीला लगा है, ये करना है करना है, बोल के भेजा था ना मैं। सब ऑनलाइन देख रहे हैं, देखिए रोहिणी वाले भक्तों को किसी को सेवा करना नहीं आता, बोलना पड़ रहा है। खास करके ये दिमाग होना चाहिए ना अपना, भगवान का बर्तन है कैसे साफ करना है। भगवान का क्या, ऐसे भगवान को भोग लगता है यहाँ पे, ऐसे धो के दे देते हैं, उठाया ऐसे धो के रख दिए। अच्छे से अभी अच्छे से सबको मासे वो प्लेट आर्थिक का उसको जैसा है वैसे लेके आना है, चमका के देखा ये ऐसे है ना, करने से इसको ऐसे चमका के लाना है।
पानी काफी डालना चाहिए, 2 बाल्टी को पानी में
किसी भी प्लेट
दोनों
तुलसी तुलसी
सारे की।
ठीक है, तो फूल लेकर आइए जल्दी से।
और यहाँ नीचे ऑल्टर वाले उसमें कपूर होगा, आप भी लेके आ जाओ।
पटल में
हाँ नीचे किचन में, ये भी नीचे जाएगा।
आल्टर में धुल नहीं जाए।
हाँ हाँ उससे हम इसको फोन करा था, तो कर्मचारी नींद में ले गए।
ये ब्रश
ये ब्रश का क्या करना है?
और बस ये और ये माला वहाँ पे है, ये एक सेट नाम में रखना है, ये फ्रीज में रखना है, ठीक है, कल सुबह तक चाहिए।
तो अभी ये ले जाओ, ये क्या कहते हैं?
हाँ ये भी ले जाओ, ये मार्च की ये मार्च का ये नीचे का
ये और भी वहीं छोड़ दो।
हाँ ये छोड़ देगा, ये और ये लेके आइएगा, ये सारा लेके आइएगा।
ये कहाँ का है?
यहाँ का है, लेके आना है।
अच्छा ये 3
हाँ।
सुखाने के लिए ये निकालने
हाँ
जो
हाँ हाँ यहाँ का ही नहीं लेके आना है, ये मत छोड़ देना है।
तो जी सोचा ना बत्ती लगाने के लिए यही था वहाँ पे, ऐसा बना हुआ था। सब चाहिए। अच्छा ठीक है।
इतना देर में मैं सब कुछ करके चला गया था, सबके चलते सब कितना टाइम वेस्ट हो रहा है।
चलते हैं पास में।
मुझे पता है पास में है।
बस आगे भाग करके दो जी। अरे क्यों नहीं आप अंदर दूसरे दुकान में लोग आपकी मीटिंग कैसे निकल वाला? अरे वो दुकान में कौन आरती कर रहा है? नीचे नीचे वाला जब डिब्बा जब खोलोगे ना, जो नीचे वाला ड्रॉर है उधर साइड में एक सीसी में रखा होगा, देखो। गाँव में सीसी नहीं है, बिल्कुल सीसी दिया हुआ है। तो मतलब दूसरे की जगह गाँव में से कहाँ रखेगा? और गेट में मुझे एक ही रखेगा। अब फोन करो ना। और ये दूसरी से पच्चीस की चाबी कहाँ रखी जाएगी? हाँ? अरे कोई चाबी लेके नहीं जा सकता है, क्योंकि चाबी लेकर जाएगा तो तीनों या तीन लोग इससे होंगे, 5 बार आती है, 5 बार कोई नहीं होगा।
जैसे बोलो दौड़ के ले जाएगा फटाफट, वही टाइम नहीं है इतना। सबसे अच्छा एक्सपर्ट तो ये है, इसको कुछ समझा नहीं पड़ता, सब कुछ करता है। देखा है,
वो होने के लिए लेकर गए थे।
देखो तो,
गुरुमास में निकाल कर रखना है ना।
हाँ किचन में निकाल के।
गुरुमास का कटोरा कहाँ है?
वही रूम में होगा, उसी से लगे, कमरे अंदर से होगा।
जाकर महाराज के लिए खाना रखना है। अड़कू
मतलब गुणगान, जैसे कहना किसी का कीर्ति, कीर्ति गाना है, कीर्ति शब्द से आया है, कीर्ति मतलब बड़ाई। तो भगवान की कीर्ति, कीर्ति गाते हैं हम, उनके नाम को गाते हैं, ताकि नहीं ऐसे नहीं, बाकी सबका तो कोई कीर्ति है ही नहीं, फिर भी गाते हैं लोग। वास्तव में तो किसी का अगर गुणगान होना चाहिए तो किसका होना चाहिए? कृष्ण का होना चाहिए, जगन्नाथ जी का होना चाहिए।